I wanted to talk to you about resilience because I feel like right now with this global pandemic, I mean, none of us expected it. It came out of left field. And to me, it seems to be, if I feel like we're all walking through this fire, everyone's gotten burned in one aspect or another, whether or not it's this pandemic or life in general. You kind of can't go through it unscathed. And so to me, the word that keeps coming up for me is resilience. And since we talked about doing this talk today, resilience has come up all over the place. Like over the past 2 weeks, it's been amazing how the word has popped up. And so I just want to kind of give you a definition. This comes from the American Psychological Association. It's the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, tragedy, trauma, or significant stress. Sounds like kind of what we're dealing with now. It also resilience allows us to get back up after being knocked down and to come back even stronger. And we've all heard the quote, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. And how, so I guess the question to all of us is, how do we become more resilient? And is this a skill or an inherent strength? Where does resilience come from? And how does some people seem to kind of rise above the fray? There's all this chaos going on, and they just sort of keep popping up and keep going. How does that happen? Well, I can tell you what we know about resilience. And that is, if we stay focused, if we stay doing what we're being called to do, we will reap the harvest. Regardless of what's going on around us, stay the course, okay? And that is true, and it's proven over and over again. It's interesting. I just came out of a 2-day intensive leadership summit 2 weeks ago, and all the speakers were addressing, the fact that even the top leaders in our culture are all feeling this weight of this pandemic on their businesses, their families, their leadership, et cetera. And some of them actually admitted to depression. They're like, they were very transparent about it. And yet they talked about the only way through this is to really stay the course, is to focus on the mission and focus on the purpose, and to make every effort to obviously take care of ourselves. That's a huge part of this, is our health, our mental health, our physical health, getting exercise, getting rest, hydrating. I mean, I know that sounds like basic stuff, but these are the things that can start to fall apart in our lives when we're under this tremendous amount of stress. I know some people, I mean, myself included, that I feel like, I'm working really hard and I've got all this stuff going on. And yet, all of a sudden, you feel like you hit the wall sometimes. You're like, oh my gosh, this doesn't happen to me. All right. But, sometimes we have to get away. I call it going to the mountaintop. And I literally did that. I had to get out of sort of my day in and day out. And I went to the mountains and I went horseback riding. And it was amazing. I mean, it was just amazing to be in nature for a couple of days. And it enabled me to kind of reconnect to myself and kind of validate what my mission is. So I just want to encourage everyone to do that. Really, really, really. At first I thought this pandemic was like a marathon. Now I'm realizing it's a series of sprints, and we have to stop and hydrate and nourish ourselves, because we're going to have to get back out there and sprint again. So anyway, let me move on here. I want to talk a little bit about the flywheel effect. Some of you may be physicists. Some of you may have read Jim Collins' Good to Great. And what he talks about is the flywheel concept, which is, there are formulas in physics that explain this, but the flywheel in physics, it's something, it's a wheel that's moving. And the concept is, you've got to continue to propel that wheel because it gets easier and easier. And so with anything, in order to move forward and to progress and to continue our development and our leadership development, you have to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it does get easier. But what happens with this flywheel is things happen, right? Things happen in our lives. It's always something, right? The point is, you've got to continue doing the same things you're doing so well to move forward. So it's the flywheel concept, particularly now during difficult times. Stay focused, stay the course, continue with your best practices. And in terms of, kind of back to that question of, what is resilience and how do you get it? I personally, I kind of feel like it's kind of like courage. I think you put it on like a cape, and it's a decision. And we can either get really bogged down with negativity right now, or we can decide to, just like we do here at the Daily Huddle, stay focused on positivity, start our day well, surround ourselves with other positive people that are lifting each other up, and stay the course. So that's kind of some thoughts on resilience. And I'm going to talk to you in a moment about, there's some tools out there that can help you. There's a brand new, like they just came out within the past couple of weeks. And I'm going to introduce those tools to you in a moment. But I want to talk to you about who I would consider to be the face of resilience. And I'm going to do a quick time check here, see how we're doing. Okay. Going for speed. So Nelson Mandela, the late, great Nelson Mandela, who, by the way, got the Nobel Peace Prize. I'm sure many of you know a lot about him, but this was a man that was, at 14 years old, knew that he wanted to be in politics, knew that he wanted to change the way that South Africa was being governed, and started out in, and there's a lot of details imbued in this, but I'm going to sort of hit a few of the highlights, but started out in a peaceful way and realized that they weren't getting the traction that they needed. So things did get violent. He was put into prison for 27 years as a terrorist. And even behind bars, he was able to impact the change that was happening in South Africa, later to get released from prison, later to establish a peace treaty, if you will, which is what he and de Klerk jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize for, and to revamp the entire governance of South Africa and win that election and rule the country. And so this is a man, it's like the more I read about him and studied him, the more I realized that he threw his body on the fire, literally. I mean, this was his calling, this was his cause, and he got knocked down so many times. I mean, people wanted to kill him, take him out. They were brutal to him in prison. He just said, you know what? Got to keep going. He just kept getting up. And so that's the face of resilience. And we could get much deeper into this topic, and maybe we will here in the chat. But I wanted to segue really quickly, and I am mindful of the time, but I wanted to introduce to you Marcus Buckingham, who came out of the Gallup organization. He studied at Cambridge. He's a psychologist and a researcher. He's written 9 books. Some of these you may know. He and Don Clifton, who he met at Cambridge, were the authors of the whole strength movement, Strength Finder. Many of you have taken that and are familiar with that. But he just came out with a brand new book and a brand new tool. And I heard him speak 2 weeks ago. And we were the first audience to hear. It was an international audience. We were the first audience to hear the announcement of the standout tool. So if you go to Marcus Buckingham standout, there's a brand new assessment tool that is free right now. They will begin to charge for it soon. He also came out with a book. He's got a Harvard Business Review article. And what this tool does is it measures your resilience, which is pretty amazing. So you'll see on my slide, there are 9 different sort of categories. So instead of looking at your personality, what this is doing is it's a 15-minute test, and it looks at how you respond to things, and it's timed. So I'm going to stop there and see where we go with the conversation. Thank you.
All right, Catherine, thank you so much for that introduction to Marcus Buckingham and the whole space you created for us to be able to walk through fire without getting burned. Resilience in your own view and our own view. So Giovanni, I'm going to hand it over to you to run with the rest.
Thank you, Sorrel. Catherine, thank you so much. And it's just bringing up it's for me, it's bringing up a little bit of a journey, this conversation of before the momentum and the context in which I was living my life before COVID actually hit the economy and hit my life emotionally, right? And then rediscovering the opportunity of what resilience is for me and for those that I get to be in touch with. And what you are bringing up as an opportunity for us to consider, right, is, and I love it, and you're being, you know, very generous in today's conversation in bringing Nelson Mandela as a perspective, right, where he goes to jail for 27 years. Talk about a quarantine, right? Quarantine himself for 27 years, right? And he got beat up, he got chewed on, he got spit on, and he had a purpose that shaped the opportunity of his life, right? And so what's bringing up for me in your conversation today is for me to be in touch with my purpose, which gives me the strength to acknowledge and embrace and nurture whatever it is that it is painful for me currently, right? So that's all that's coming up for me in your conversation. So I appreciate immensely where you have taken us, where you have traveled us. And so I want to open it up for questions. Anybody has any question or any comments that you would like to take on? Go ahead, Lori Kay.
Yeah, you were talking about Nelson Mandela, and I immediately went to my Audible to find a book on him and learn more. Of course, I know the basic story. Are there any books that you would recommend that were, I see he's written a lot, but is there anything that it's a good book about who he is and his story?
There was one, if I saw the cover of it, I've got it kind of a visual of the cover of it. I can't remember the name, but it's the last one he wrote.
Last one he wrote? Okay.
And it's got a white cover when it was published. So I'm sorry, I don't have the title, and I don't want to Google it right now, but
I connected with you on LinkedIn. Maybe you can, if you know it, we can communicate further there.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, it was sort of after, it was during sort of after he journeyed through all of this. So it's a perspective looking back over his journey, which is why that's the one I think you might enjoy.
Thank you. I will look through here, and I look forward to hearing back from you. But I really do appreciate the resilience. And I think with resilience, there's also the, it goes hand in hand with recreating yourself and, you know, reestablishing. And I think that's a big part of the resilience. And And thank you for touching on all these subjects. It was great.
Absolutely. And this, you know, this is kind of in response to everyone. One of the things when I studied resilience that came out was being able to take risks, because there's no playbook for what we're going through right now. There's no handbook, there's no playbook, there's kind of no modern example. And so we're all having to figure it out on our own. And so as leaders, first of all, be creative. And if you have to pivot and take those calculated risks. If you're managing other people, I would encourage you to allow their creativity in figuring out how they can best do their work and their jobs.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lori Kay, for starting the conversation. And I saw Kimberly, you had your hand up. Do you still want to comment, or you want me to move on? I'm not sure if you hear me, Kimberly, but go ahead, Mark.
So Catherine, I want to.
Go ahead, ladies first. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Catherine, you are saying is completely on point. In 2016, I became a caregiver to my mother, and I really had to discover my resilience. And one of the things you said is you have to take care of yourself. One of my best friends, she told me, Kimberly, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And I have come close to like pushing myself and my health to the brink, trying to take care of my mother, do the things I want to do in my life. And that is something I just really had to learn, is to stop and make time to take care of myself. And I also want to thank you for inviting men also to your institute and to your space. I think it's important to have spaces that represent us, but I think it's also important to help others that may not identify see themselves in another person that's different from them, because it reminds us of our humanity and how we're all connected and we can learn from each other. So thank you.
You're most welcome. And I can tell you, when this institute was put together, one of the callings that I had was to bridge the racial gap, because I can tell you that we really need to come together. And this institute is bringing people together. And the more, just like South Africa, when they did the peace process, the more they heard each other's stories, they started to feel compassion for each other. And then they started to lift each other up.
Because isn't that really what it's about? Compassion and seeing that humanity and taking the time to acknowledge it. Because it's the stories about each other that tear us apart, the false stories.
Right. And then you realize this is a human journey. And we're all going through our own struggles, and many of them are the same.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Catherine. Go ahead, Mark.
Good morning, Catherine. How's it going?
Hi, Mark.
Hey, first of all, I have to give you your props. You have great energy. I love your focus, your message. You touched me today.
Thank you.
I kind of have a double-edged sword. I'm one of those people, it takes a lot to touch me and it takes a lot to inspire me, and you have done that this morning, so I just want to thank you for that.
Oh my, thanks.
My question for you is, you're inspiring me and all these other people watching, and you constantly do this through your institution. And I'm not asking you historically who inspires you. Who inspires you on a daily basis? What motivates you? Who coaches you? How do you stay pumped up and surrounded by positive people, just as you said we should?
So, and I'm just, hey, this is the daily huddle. So I'm going to be really transparent, right? Because that's what this is about. I am a person of faith. So number one, I'm a person of faith. So I have to stay true to my course and stay true to my calling. And so I prayerfully ask for guidance. And this whole institute had nothing to do with me. Okay. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is something that we can all do, but I was a voracious reader, but I'm like addicted to audiobooks. So I'll pound through audiobooks. I've gone through 22 books since November. And the books are on leadership, and the books are on entrepreneurship, and the books are written by people that are much smarter and more accomplished than I'll ever be. And what's happening is it's changing my thinking, and it's keeping me focused, and it's keeping me super motivated. And then finally is leadership infusion. I call it leadership infusion. Coming to groups like this, going to these, every year I take 2 days out of my life and I go to an in-depth leadership summit, and I'm just in a sponge mode. So we have to be really intentional about who we surround ourselves with and what we let into our minds. I hope that helps.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
And love your basement, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Catherine. And it is so critical that we allow ourselves to hear what Catherine is saying, not as, oh, I heard this before, but really, what do I have in my schedule to surrender, to disconnect myself from the way I constantly think in life, right? My constant thoughts that I usually have. Go ahead, Andrea.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Catherine. Thank you so much for the talk today about resilience. That's one of my 3 words in life. So I'm totally connect with what you're saying.
Yay.
Yes. Yeah, the other 2 are passionate and self-discipline. So that's what I was going with this is not about me. What I was going with this is I was very impressed with your talk. I went to your website in the Institute of Executive Women, and I'm really intrigued about if you can explain to us how we can connect with you, how we can support the community you're creating, and how we can be part of this tent, as Sorrel was saying, of supporting each other as women, as protagonists of our lives, and as resilient humans. So if you can expand a little bit of how we can connect with you, that would be fantastic.
Sure. Thank you. Protagonists of women. I love that. Protagonists of each other. So it's instituteforexecutivewomen.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's a form you can fill out, an online form, and we'll get that. And we can add you to our emailing list and invite you to our Women's Power Breakfast, which we're doing for free right now on Zoom. And so you'll get an invitation to those. They're monthly. And then we also have a, if it's something that you're interested in and you're the right fit for, we have a Executive Roundtable Women's Edition, which is a cohort of women that meets, we're actually meeting weekly right now, but that's a small group where we go in depth into leadership and supporting each other. It's like a CEO roundtable type of thing.
Nice.
And so we can talk more about that. That will be a kind of a one-on-one conversation.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and everything that you share with us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I look forward to getting to know you.
Yes, ma'am.
Phenomenal. Well, Catherine, we have come to that time where we get to say goodbye, but you have left us with enough insights and emotional connection to the opportunity of purpose and the opportunity of reading and the opportunity of connecting to a community that is committed to something bigger than ourselves. So thank you so much. It has been really phenomenal conversation. So before I give you the last word, well, actually, let me go ahead and give you the last word, and then I'll make the last announcement. Go ahead, Catherine. What are your last words?
My last words are stay the course, and choose resilience. Choose positivity, turn off the noise, stay focused on your purpose.
Thank you. Stay the course, choose resilience, and stay positive, and stay connected to your purpose. Thank you, Catherine. And those of you, I want to tell you, there's only 1 week away for our leadership course that Sorel and I are going to be leading on purpose, on business, and how to reinvent yourself during COVID-19 and how to reinvent your business. We'll leave the details in the chat as usual. Don't think about it, jump in, disconnect yourself, be part of a community that is committed to growth and development and the reinvention of your business. I hope you have a phenomenal rest of the day. Thank you, Catherine, and we will see you tomorrow at 9 a.m. I love you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Catherine.
Good day, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
All right.
Have a good